Hello, audience, you lovely people, you. Today we have a very special treat because I'm joined by the man to my left and your right, who is a seasoned copywriter from the direct response world. He's worked for dozens of companies, including the traditional direct response you'd expect, Agora, Southbank. He is the man who Jim Rickards called the man of many talents, which I pulled straight from his website, so it must be good. He is Glenn Fisher, and he is all round a lovely bloke. So, Glenn, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm all right. I think that was one of the questions that you aimed at me there, amongst the peppering and the seasoned copywriter. I like the idea I'm a seasoned copywriter. I spent far too much money on a salt and pepper shaker. No, I am seasoned. And Jim Rickards, he gave me a very nice testimonial, Jim. He's a very nice man. If anyone ever has the pleasure to write copy with him, he is one of amongst the best editors to work with, because he gets copy, and that's often a big challenge. We might get into that down the road of this interview. But yeah, hello. Thanks for having me.
No, you're very welcome. It's an honor to have you. And we will certainly be going down the road of all things direct response, but also all things generally marketing and copywriting, because that's the name of the show. And I think I'm gonna start at a very obvious place, because, as you know, direct response copywriters have no imagination or creativity. So I'm gonna start at the beginning, because everyone likes an origin story. Glenn, how did you get into copywriting in the first place? I want you to answer that, flow with it, take it where you want it to take you, and then I'm going to add something at the end and talk about our origin story together and how we met before. But first, I want to hear about you.
So it's 2007, I think. So I have to précis every kind of backstory in my life with the fact that my sense of chronology and years and how old I am and how I've managed to do stuff does not fit in mathematically with my age and with my life, and I'm not very good at remembering dates. But I seem to think I started copywriting in 2007 because it was the height of the financial crisis, and I got into the financial copywriting world, which was kind of ironic. But a long story, relatively short, is I was living in Grimsby, where I was born. I was an accountant, specifically an auditor. So I'd go into council departments for the local council, and I would analyze their financial systems and make recommendations for how to fix them and improve them. This was preposterous because I had no training in that particular field. I was doing like an accountancy course. I'd come straight out of sixth form, which is like the bit after college. It's like, what is it? It's before you do a degree. I'd studied business, economics, and politics. My ambition up until about the age of 22 was to be a bank manager. That's as inventive and as creative as I was able to be in life. So that was all kind of going along fine. And then somewhere around that time, actually 3 years prior to becoming a copywriter, something like snapped in my head, something broke, or you could say fixed itself, if you like. And I decided I didn't like doing that. I didn't want to be a businessman. I didn't want to be an accountant. Didn't want to be an auditor. And I didn't want to kind of do that all my life. And I realized around that time, I'd never been a very literary fellow. I had very literary friends at school, but I was always kind of the lean to the thicker side of things. But for some reason around that time, I kind of started reading, and I got into writing. I just started realizing I liked writing, and I liked kind of writing ideas down on the page. And it was only like stupid, silly stuff. So I always remember I was in Grimsby yesterday, actually, and I drove past the crossroads where the first short story I ever wrote was about a fictionalized account of a guy who gets famous for crossing the street. And I wrote this short story about him crossing the road. It was inspired by this incredibly difficult junction in Grimsby to cross. So I started writing this stuff, and I wanted to do something with it, but I didn't really understand what. Still working for the council. But I started doing a night class just 2 hours a week going to like a creative writing thing. And the teacher was like, "You're quite good at this. This is quite good stuff. What are you doing with it?" And I was like, "Nothing." And he suggested I could do a degree in creative writing, and that they were doing one at the Grimsby College, not a proper university at the time, certainly. I'm not going to get political whether it is today or not, but I thought, well, okay, went along to that, and the guy was like, "Yeah, we'll have you on." So I was technically a mature student. Describing me as mature is a very ridiculous thing to do in any part of my life, but I was a mature student, and I quit my job. I left the council. God knows how. The only person who had the foresight to see what was coming was my mum, who knew I'd be skint very quickly. But I basically studied creative writing for 3 years and figured out how it all works, and kind of understood the terms for what I was doing and all the stuff that I kind of inherently kind of displayed in my writing. And then it came to going, right, well, I need to get a job using this skill. I knew I didn't want to be a journalist. Didn't want to just like report stuff. And that was the only thing you could possibly do with writing in Grimsby at the time, and potentially now. But I knew I had to get out of like Dodge, and I looked at going to Manchester. I looked at, because my friends were there, I was playing music at the time and what have you. I applied for every single job I could get for a junior writer in anything, apart from kind of journalism. And I was greeted at every like, not even interview stages. It was just, you need 2 years minimum experience to get this job as a writer. And I was like, well, I'm trying to get a job as a writer to get the minimum experience that I need to get into the industry, kind of thing. And bear in mind, no specific industry this time, just anything with writing in it. Finally, I saw a job advert in London for a company that I did not know what the company was. The job advert was potentially a joke, and it sounded very well. And all you had to do was sell a suit in 500 words. They didn't want a CV or anything like that, and you had to send it off to this person. And I won't say the name, but the name it turned out to was a fake name, and I'll get to that. And this is Agora, bear in mind, a very successful publishing company that's very serious. But the guy was a fake name. I'll get to why. But anyway, I saw this thing, and I was drunk. I always remember I was drunk, like, or hungover rather, on a Sunday morning, and I wrote a short story because I didn't really understand what I was meant to be doing, about how Jesus got the job as Son of God. And I did this whole thing where he was like this shit carpenter, and he was like just rubbish. And he saw like an advert on the jobs wall in Jerusalem, and he, for Son of God, he went along to the interview, absolutely bombed the interview. It was absolutely rubbish, like just arrogant, stupid, what have you. But he was wearing this beautiful suit, and God's like, look, if you give me that suit, I will employ you as the Son of God. Even at that stage, this Jesus guy is so stupid. He's like, it's a nice suit kind of thing. I'm not sure. But eventually he relinquishes the suit and he gets the job. And then my company that was selling these suits had descended from the suit maker that had made this suit. So a load of nonsense, ultimately. And I wrote it as a stupid kind of short story, as I was used to writing at that time, and sent this off hungover. Luckily, on the other side of the interview process was one of my first copywriting mentors, who was a crazy, crazy man. And he saw in that, and now I realize as well, looking back, he saw the ability to not sell a suit by just selling it and saying it's got a nice sharp collar, or it's well starched, or it's whiter than white, and all this kind of stuff, or what have you. He saw that I developed it into a story, and saw something in my writing which was like, right, okay, he understands the concept of going for something bigger than just straight up sales. So I ended up packing my little bag, went to London for the interview, walked in. This man and his assistant at the time, fellow copywriter and good friend of mine, sat there. All we did for about an hour and a half was joke and have a laugh. I remember him pushing a newsletter, what I now know to be like a penny share newsletter, and probably a long copy sales promotion on the desk at some point, and going, "This is what we do," and me going, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that even means, kind of thing, ignoring that. And then he marched me out the interview. We had a bit of a joke where they were like dead casual and kind of saying t-shirt and jeans and everything, and I'd turned up in this tan suit, so I looked like an absolute knobhead. And I was like, they said, "Have you got any questions?" I was like, "Not really, but I just want to apologize for like the suit I'm wearing. I look like an absolute idiot." Anyway, so the guy like frog marched me out of the office in London as a joke, and I thought, well, I've either got the job or I've got like good grounds to like take this guy to court afterwards for like embarrassing me in front of this office. Anyway, so I got the job, started the job, and the job turned out to be a junior copywriter. Well, actually a junior writer technically, which is slightly benefited me in life, and I'm sure we'll get to it. But it was junior copywriter for Agora, the publishing giant that most of your viewers, I should think, will know about. Very good timing in the sense that in the UK office at that time, Bill Bonner, the owner of the whole thing, was living in London and working there, helping train the writers there. Mark Ford was also there. He was coming across quite regularly. You had like some big names from like the Agora world were there. And I think I was lucky, along with Nick, my business partner, who we'll talk about at some point. We were kind of among the last UK writers who were lucky enough to get kind of trained directly alongside like Bill and Mark and stuff like that. So it was a great time. It was a good time, and that's how I got into copywriting. I feel like that was slightly longer than the ramble that you wanted, but not too rambly. And I left out the dancing elves, which I don't think were necessary to the story.
Glenn, I didn't know what I wanted until you told me that you effectively landed your first copywriting job by blaspheming. That's a fantastic anecdote.
I've got the story somewhere. I've got the story somewhere, and it says it's got a tick on it, and it says "very keen." That was my that was my and it's full, by the way, for any kind of writers like myself who are crap at spelling and crap grammatically. It is full of like basic typing errors, like you and your and all this kind of stuff. Completely, it's a terrible piece of copy. It's a terrible story in many ways, but that got me the job that landed me where I am today. And now a published author. It's like
at the end of the day, if it got you a job, I don't think it was a terrible piece of copy. No. I mean, if there's anything I've learned, it's that grammar matters little when it comes to conversions, which is another topic I'm sure we'll get onto. But no, Glenn, thank you for that. I would love for you to share about the dancing elves. To be completely honest,
they died. They all died. They all died.
Oh, this is a this certainly, the viewers of Copy That will know that this fits in with our scope as a channel. But that's fantastic. The thing that I think is quite humbling is that I know that, you know, the people who are watching this, when I was in their position, say kind of 5 years ago, and I would see, you know, published authors and people who are respected copywriters on videos and in their newsletters and stuff. When I would see that, I would always think, they must have just had something that I don't have. They must just have found a way or had a lucky break or whatever. But ultimately, hearing stories like yours and similar to those of others that Copy That, I think it just reinforces how anyone can get into this industry. And that's kind of the next thing I want to go into you about.
Literally didn't know anything about copywriting. I had no ambitions to be a copywriter. I wanted and still want to like write silly stories. Some would argue some of my promotions are silly stories, but I had no idea what it was. And I've met, I think I can probably say it genuinely, I've met thousands of copywriters. And obviously a lot of the work I do is kind of trying to connect with copywriters and help them and stuff. And I almost guarantee every copywriter, and especially the most successful, have all got a equally insane, silly, weird, like chances way into the industry. It's really not about like how you do it. I'm trying to say it in a succinct copywriting show way, but it's not like it's not what you know necessarily. It's not like your talent level is like, oh yeah, I've done these 12 headlines from Stansbury and all this kind of stuff. It's all about your mindset and your approach to things. Is the far more important thing, how you are as a person. I like to think that is what got me through those early years, kind of thing. But
yeah, for sure. And I mean, the one point of similarity between us, which I still find bizarre, is that we were both auditors for our local councils before we got into copywriting. That was my full-time job that I was doing when I was looking at copywriting, and that I quit to go full-time with copywriting. And
we will create a product between us, Alex, whereby you have to be an auditor for a year before you can like do your first sales promotion. Just a wasted year of being an auditor.
I want people submitting. Yeah. So I want some people, I want them submitting correct RAG statuses. I want them pointing out what risks and mitigations there are for those risks. I don't want to talk about auditing ever again in my life.
No. I've forgotten, or I mean, Ruth will attest, and my accountant will attest to the fact that my auditing skills have all but been erased from my life and my mind. There is not room for them. In the same way Sherlock Holmes didn't care whether the earth was flat because he just didn't need to know that. I do not need to know things about auditing anymore. So I've pushed those out of my head. Probably the most effective like whitewashing campaign of my life. Not that there's many whitewashing campaigns going on in my life. Maybe there are.
Would that I could do the same. I'm not going to pursue any line of inquiry that you're not comfortable with pursuing, Glenn. So we will leave the whitewashing aside. But the other thing, that the two kind of things connected you and I specifically. One was just the coincidence, and that actually was what prompted me to write to you 4 years ago. Which I know we've obviously met since then and we've spoken since then. But that was back when I was a complete novice, and we've spoken about this since then as well. But I doubt that you remembered, because I imagine you got quite a lot of emails and messages and things.
Remember everyone?
Yeah, sure.
No, I do. I remember your name. Oh, you've got quite a distinctive surname as well. There's a lot of Y's and T's going on in there, so it's. I do roughly. I get a lot of emails from copywriters trying to get the industry, but I generally have a pretty good memory for that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Well, that's awesome, and I feel privileged to be in that group. But since becoming a working copywriter and making a bit of a name for myself in communities, I now know how you feel about getting emails all the time, and it is lovely, and I try and respond to as many as I can. But you did respond. You did respond to me, and this was when I actually came across an article from when you were working at Agora UK, and you basically just put out there, "Hey, if you think you can be a copywriter, then send me an email, and I'll see what I can do." And I read that. I can't remember how I found the article. I think I was doing loads and loads of research. And I sent you an email and I said, "Oh, I can't remember exactly what I wrote. I should dig it out at some point." But I basically said, "Look, this is, I noticed you were, I did research on you. I said, I noticed you were an auditor at your local council. Guess what? I'm exactly there as well. And hire me, please." I don't think I said it quite like that. I was probably a bit more eloquent at the time. But you replied to me and you basically gave me some great advice, which was like, just keep doing stuff. Like, just don't stop, and just keep any opportunity you get, just go for it. And that really helped me at the time. You weren't working for Agora when I actually emailed you at the time. I think you'd moved on. So you weren't running the program anymore. But that helped me to kind of go like, yeah, all right, persistence is going to be the key here. And I just wondered what you would say to the question of what are the green flags that you notice in aspiring copywriters? Like, what are the traits that you look for when you're looking to hire or you're recommending people for work?
So there's a few things, a few different ways of like answering that, and I think the most useful is this slightly moves ahead a bit, but because it's quite difficult to get this just from like an email or anything. So I'll go back in a minute, but in the chronology of kind of once you have your foot in the door, or if you're at like an event and you get to speak to someone or what have you, or if you're on a program, a course, or you've like gone on a copy camp or something, without doubt, from my experience and from the experience of those around me, the key thing that almost all publishers, all copy chiefs, anybody kind of working in that world is looking for, probably more than even the ability to come up with good ideas, which is like the currency of what we work in. We are ideas people rather than copywriters. But the one thing above even that, I think, is the ability to listen and to take on advice, and be it in the form of life advice, if you're going into like guru realm here, or like editorial advice, or like changes, or just like when people are reviewing your copy, like listen to it and change it, and don't try and defend it. Now, I'm not going to get too philosophical and in this, but I do have a tendency to do that. But like in life, I find that one of my biggest challenges is that I defend so much. Like if Ruth says to me, Ruth's my partner, she says, "Oh, you've done this," I'll be, "Oh no, I didn't do that. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't." And I'll try and kind of win the argument back by defending it and doing that. Thankfully, despite that, we still have a good relationship. But the best way to have a good relationship is to listen, go, "All right, okay, I see what you mean. I can see how I can improve," all that kind of stuff. Long way around of saying, like, for a copywriter, what we're looking for when we work with copywriters, and we have like an academy at the moment where we have a few people working with us closely, and we're kind of tutoring them to get jobs and what have you, is that ability to go, right, what if this said this, and this, and that copywriter being able to go away, take on board that advice and change something. We have seen that when we like run copy camps and stuff, it's often the copywriter who writes the worst stuff to begin with, but develops and is able to take on advice, who succeeds, versus the copywriter who's copying the breakthrough promos, makes their copy look right. It all looks the same, but then when we say, "Oh, maybe if you change that," they'll go, "Oh yeah," and then don't change it and don't take on advice. That, to me, that will endear you to a million more people than it would if you don't have that quality. The thing that pisses people off more than anything is just when advice and stuff is ignored, especially if it's like your head of copies, your publishers, who are ultimately on the hook for getting this stuff out and sending it out and what have you. So that's my long way round of saying that's the one overwhelming superpower that you want to develop: the ability to listen, take advice on, and see that when people are trying to change your copy, it's not an attack on you, it's an opportunity to improve the copy, and that's all it ever is. And then you get to take credit for it. I learned from Mark Ford very early on, if you're just nice to everybody and just plant a flag, you can then take credit for everything in the end. And I am now trying to carry on that tradition by taking credit for everything I can wherever I can. But before that, though, I would say, obviously, that's if you get to that stage where you can do that. Trying to evidence that willing to listen. Obviously, you can do that in copy. You can ask questions. One of the things that, and I'll choose it purely practical basis answer, we're getting a lot of copy from people who are trying to pitch for gigs, trying to get into like the Agora world or similar worlds or even agency side stuff, and people just send in the same stuff. They basically think of themselves as nothing more than a writer and someone who produces content for company X. What's really good about copy is that it's a way of finding solutions to a business problem. And then you also can then write up the words for it at the end. So what I mean by that is, rather than just sending like a publisher 6 lift notes that you've done, I'd actually be going out to businesses and saying, what's your biggest problem? What's the challenge you face? How like, you need new customers, you need new this, you need new that, or you need more of this, or you need less of that. And I can help you with that. And then the answer is always going to be, when they say, "Oh, right, how do you do that?" The answer is always going to be, well, I'm going to write them copy. It's going to be an email funnel, or it's going to be a thing, or it's going to be a promo, or it's going to be an advert, or it's going to be a billboard, or whatever area you're writing. But just start thinking less in terms of your output as a copywriter, I produce words on the page, and start thinking, how can I be someone who helps this company go forward? If you have that slight mindset change, and have the discipline to follow that and apply that to what you're currently doing, like if you've got pitch emails, like think, actually, if I was in that position, am I actually, and I was receiving that email, is this email solving me anything, or is it just actually saying, "Hi there, I'm looking for a job. Do you want me to write more of the stuff that you've already got?" Like, because I don't need that. So just, I think about it like that. I think those two things, the idea of listening and altering your offering and your writing as a reaction to that, and also at the front end of that thing, listening, asking questions, understanding what the business's problems and challenges are, and selling yourself as a solution to those, rather than selling yourself as a copywriter, is where I would start thinking. I don't know if that's abstract. I feel like that might have practical use in that answer, but maybe
100%. No, 100%. I also think that there are more than enough videos and step-by-step guides out there about specific methods of trying to find your first job. I think the thing that people potentially lack is that mindset shift. So I think that's really useful. And actually, I want to put a pin in a specific point that you mentioned, which was changing your mind to fix a business's problems, because I want to come back to that later on, and talk about that in a quite a specific frame. Before we go into that, I want to explore the world of direct response, traditional direct response, which is, where you cut your teeth initially. Because there's a lot of viewers of our channel, similar with the fix, of course, where they have heard that direct response is a particular kind of writing or a particular style. Now, we've explained in videos before why direct response isn't a style, it's an objective, but they still have this vision that direct response, traditional direct response industries like fin publishing and health and stuff like that, anything with info products, is the way to the top, and that's the best way to go. We'll talk about alternative routes and why that may be a harmful thing to think later on. But the first thing I wanted to ask was, how would you describe the traditional direct response world to your average marketer, your average copywriter, the people who have not had any exposure to direct response in that traditional sense yet, and are potentially just looking at marketing or writing as a career? Are there any points that you think they'd be surprised with when looking at that industry as a whole?
Yeah. So I mentioned Jim Rickards, and Jim Rickards put me on a book once, and his whole idea, which you could say was slightly cynical for a financial editor, but I actually think was a genuine point. He used to always argue that when you are given new information, and new input, you change your theories and move around and what have you. Some would say, oh, you said this last week and now you're saying this kind of thing, but it's, oh, I've got more information. And that stuck in my mind. And recently I with the stuff that I've been doing with the fix and my partner, Nick O'Connor, who's another Agora copywriter, ex-Agora copywriter, although we both still write for Agora these days. He's a slightly younger, some would say better looking version of me. But the stuff we've been doing in the fix, we've been like almost getting ourselves back into a much more disciplined way of thinking about all of this stuff, because we do like talk about it every day between ourselves, but also we record podcasts every week kind of thing, and we're talking about these things and people are asking us, we're working with people doing boot camps and all this kind of stuff. And we hit upon something recently whereby, actually before I was doing that, I left the direct response world for a while and went into the kind of indirect response world. So kind of fancy stuff like adverts in the magazines and billboards and all that kind of stuff, and branding and what have you. And I wandered in that world. And then what we've been doing recently, and because I'm advising people, I was like, right, I should write some more promos again in the direct response world. And I've been doing that a lot. So this is all to kind of say, so we had a big discussion about why that always brings you back in that world of direct response. And long story short is, I think there's two key elements to it. Number one is that direct response, really the one thing that defines it from the agency world, or rather the kind of, actually you can have direct response in a billboard by putting a website on there kind of thing or what have you. But the key thing of a direct response advert, in whatever form it takes, is that it is measurable, because you are getting a direct response to your copy, to your work that you're putting out there. If it's indirect, if it's like a poster in the street and you're just hoping that it's going to build brand awareness, and next time that person's in the supermarket, they're going to buy your product, that's indirect. You can't measure that. You can do all the focus groups in the world that you want to do. You're not really going to measure that. I mean, award ceremonies, like Khan would argue with me that you can, but they're lying, you can't. So the measurability of your copy is huge within the direct response world, which naturally links to the fact that, therefore, if your copy is measurable, you can put a value on it. So if you know that that piece of copy goes out and that gets more sales, that gets more customers, that shifts more units, you know how much that copy is bringing in. There's a million other factors to that, of course, and it might be a really good marketing campaign. It might be some crazy person on TikTok doing something weird and wonderful that I've decided not to move with the times, and I'm going to stick in my little world. But it might be all of these things, but you can measure it. And therefore, if you can measure something, you can put the value to it. And if you can put the value to it, you can then charge more for it. So that little kind of measurability, financial compensation bit is like one key element of direct response, I think, which is important to know and important to understand. It's important to understand for direct response copywriters, but also if you're not working in direct response, or if you're not working in what we sometimes mean by that, the kind of long copy, financial health kind of betting world, then if you're in, I don't know, Uncommon, to name a big agency, by understanding all of that stuff, you'll be able to make your indirect copy much better and much cleaner, and be able to kind of figure your career out as well in a different way through thinking like that. So I think that little part of direct response is really key to everybody understanding. The other side, which I've latterly come to think about, a point that Nick raised, and I think it's a very insightful one, is that the nature of direct response, because you are asking for a direct response, you therefore usually have to have a bit more copy. You can have like short direct response pieces and fill in this coupon or what have you, but usually you have to have more copy and you need to develop a deeper connection with the reader, because at the end they're probably going to get the wallet out or something like that. Or no one has a wallet these days. If they're going to get the credit card number out and enter it online, or they're going to hit PayPal or whatever, but they're going to take a financial decision at the end of your copy. That means you have to write longer stuff and have a deeper understanding with your reader. What that means is that you, as the copywriter, have to really, excuse my language, but you have to really understand what you're talking about. You have to dig deeper. You have to learn that stuff. The promo I'm writing today, I am sat there today. I have written a little bit because I'm a bit of a cheat and I don't always practice what we preach, but I'm mainly in the research part, and then I'll write some bits around that. But I'm just researching to try and find stuff that no one else knows and around this idea. That means that it's incredibly stimulating. I'm sat there having tea with Ruth going, oh, did you know that the debt to thing ratio? Or did you know that Gordon Brown did X and this did Y, or what have you? And it's really stimulating. I've got millions of books around me. I'm a book nerd. And that's why it kind of works for me, because I'm reading all this stuff and I'm going, oh, that's really good. I can put that in my copy, and it all reflects. So you've got this intellectually, as well as the measurability and financial side of things, you've got this intellectually stimulating requirement. We always say, and I'm sure you guys have said it as well, you need to be curious. When everybody says, what's the quality of a copywriter? You need to be curious. You do need to be curious. I didn't realize I was as curious as I am, but when you clock that and you go, all right, I want to understand that, I want to understand that. If you are just writing if you get your brief and it's several adverts that are going in a magazine, and it's designed in such a way that you need to just put 3 words in the bottom corner and get it down to nothing, that's an art in itself. And I'm not dismissing that. I get paid a lot of money to do that as well, but it's only intellectually stimulating in a very technical way. What direct response copy offers and the longer stuff gives you a much more stimulating intellectual challenge on a much more intellectual, emotional basis. So I think that's a thing that and I'm saying this, I'm trying to be original. There is nothing original in the sun, but I feel like those two sides of it are what makes direct response, in brackets, long copy kind of stuff, really kind of interesting. And I get the feeling that measurability, actually, I mean, I'm quoting David Ogilvy, that whole thing we all use in the direct response world. David Ogilvy wouldn't employ an agency copywriter unless they've done 2 years in direct response. I think it's been a long time since I read that book, but I think it was because of the measurability aspect, because you therefore understand sales. Go back to what I was saying before about you understand business problems, you understand that kind of thing. But I think that intellectually and emotionally stimulating stuff as well, that just makes you a more rounded, interesting and interested person when it comes to doing the copy. And then that all goes into the magic bit, which is where you can express yourself in a weird way, and you bring your own shit to that kind of thing. And we've all got that uniqueness within us. So yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, but I think for me, that's the key for direct response. And I say the definitions are old, knackered, and a bit tired, but direct response in brackets, the long copy kind of traditional way that we talk about it. But as I say, you can put a website on a billboard. That is technically direct response. If you're tracking that website, then you're having a direct response to that billboard. I don't think many people do that because they'd be horrified to see the responses or lack of and the money that's spent on that billboard and that website. Although QR codes are probably going to help that a bit more, I should think. But I'm lazy in regards to doing market research and shit like that. Someone will do it for me and tell me what they need.
I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head, really, and that the thing that I always try to make clear is because, you know, I've worked very closely with Agora copywriters. I've worked on lifts. I've never fully penetrated that traditional direct response world, just because I've never.
Why?
It's yeah, we did say. But before the recording started, just to note, Glenn and I were talking about how sexy we should try or not try to make the stream.
Yeah, just go with the natural sexiness. Anyway,
The next
penetration
time
aside.
we're out for a pint. Yes, penetration aside, or, you know, to the wherever you want, the side or in, or, you know, you know, I've worked very closely with it, and that's what I studied for until now, the last 5 years. I continuously study promos and what's going out, and, you know, I'm on New Health and Agora, Stansbury, South Bank lists, always looking at what's happening. But I never went into it to do work, and instead I used kind of all those skills and the things I was learning in more, I guess, widely known about industries like physical e-commerce and stuff like that. And the reason that I'm always so particular with the definition of direct response, I don't mind people being blasé, and I don't mind people using the term when they mean long copy and stuff. But the reason I always try and reiterate to people that, you know, direct response isn't just long copy is because I never want people to think that they can only use those long copy principles in long copy. You know, you should absolutely be looking to apply them everywhere else. Because like you've said, Glenn, you know, if you take what you've learned from that and you apply it to the indirect world, it just becomes more effective. Harder to measure, of course. But
I mean, that's vice versa as well. It's worth saying, and I'll play devil's advocate. When we held Fix Fest earlier on in the year, and part of my whole goal with Fix is to bridge that gap and ultimately make copywriters the greatest people in the world, which I believe they can be. But part of the reason for that not being the case currently is we've kind of been sidelined and we're so confused, and it's all a bit mucky, and we don't really understand, like, one person thinks they're a copywriter, this person thinks they're a copywriter, but they've never done any similar work, or on the surface at least. And you've got people in this side of the argument, that side of the argument, and there's still people who I love and respect who still think that way. But one of the most eye-opening things for me was when I went freelance and wasn't exclusively doing Agora style copy and doing long copy, and started working for like brands and writing 3 words and what have you, and spending a day trying to get a sentence down to a single word. In fact, I think I've got it down to 2. Was my best advert, where I managed to like whittle it down to 2 words. But I realized that, right, okay, there's really intelligent people in this world doing really smart stuff. There's really intelligent people in this world doing really smart stuff. And both of those things can be linked and crossed over and used. But there's a, what's the right word? There's a pettiness, a kind of anxiety,
superiority sometimes as well.
Yeah, insecurity on both sides of that crevice, if you
Schism.
like, where it's like, they do that and we don't do that, and you can't do that, and that's not how that works, and that don't look cool, but that looks boring, or that looks thingy, and that does this thing, and it's just a bit stupid, because ultimately we want to make as many sales as we can. And I'm trying to kind of show those 2 worlds to get to each other. And then, as I say, I am forming in my mind this philosophy where I think that's why copy writers are so kind of, or certainly the majority of copywriters, I would say. You've got like people in certain niches doing very, very well, and long may it continue. But the majority tend to be a little bit like, I don't know why. I don't do that. I don't do that, or what have you. I'm just this, right? I'm just this. I'm just this. I'm just, and the word just constantly. And I think, right, no, like we have the potential to be in the very earliest meeting where strategy is taking place, where design is taking place, where ideas are being born, and we're going, right, okay, how do we fix this problem? And it's the words are secondary. When we get to the words, they become primary. But anyway, that's my long way around saying, yeah, there's the worlds need to do. I'm doing this now. I've basically become David Brent, but it needs to kind of merge in some way. But it needs ambassadors on both sides. I think you can't
100%.
just like the traditional direct response needs to acknowledge that sometimes something needs to look cool. and the people on that side who think it all needs to look cool and it can't be 12 pages of copy need to realize that sometimes if you want someone to pay £2,000 for something, it probably needs to be longer than, hey, this is cool. Like, that's not going to like convince someone. Yeah. So you need both sides to kind of drop the pretense a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's a mission I think we share. Copy that itself, we're made up of a mix of brand and direct response. So Rod, one of our co-hosts, is a strategist at Wieden & Kennedy, doing stuff for Nike in the US. And like it's been so eye-opening to hear from him the kind of thinking that goes into those campaigns. And you're absolutely right. There's definitely a whiff of superiority, I think, from both sides and from people on both sides of the divide, that really shouldn't be there. To me, the shining beacon of hope is Rory Sutherland. I think I would recommend his content to anyone from any side, because there's so much to be learned there, and he sums it up in such an applicable way.
He is.
And I'm glad.
Say, though, I'm going to take this opportunity to stand up. Ruth, we watched an interview with Rory. Oh, I think I interviewed Rory. I did at one point, but I don't know if that's where the interview. But he said that there's no point in drinking red wine or something like that. He said it's horrible, and Ruth took umbrage from it. She was like overheard, like the interview that was. Maybe I was editing it and come back, and I'm sure it was that. He said, "Oh, that's all just rubbish." She was like, "That's ridiculous." And I think he was saying about drinking champagne with chips, or if you only drink it with chips. Anyway.
Oh no!
With it. I'll clarify. People can email me after this if they like, and I will clarify that story for you.
Oh no!
I've only got. I'm trying new anecdotes, and I've not developed it yet. I'll get there.
I actually have a similar one. My partner had taken offence once to the fact that Rory Sutherland said that flossing was a waste of time, and he was a staunch defender of dental hygiene, so he took offence to that line. So maybe Rory Sutherland is the most divisive figure, and I've got that completely wrong. But Rory, if you're watching, I love you.
Well, yeah, he was meant to be speaking at FixFest, the first one, but he was in Georgia or some strange country on holiday. But yeah, watch this space anyway.
Fantastic. But we've hit on a few things there, and one of them I want to develop further. We've discussed the importance of both these worlds. You need to learn from each other, and also I think in cases realizing that they're not always as different as they think. And a point I want to move into is specifically your relationship with copy. You mentioned that the need for curiosity and how you naturally find yourself going into these rabbit holes. Myself today, I was in one around Jeremy Hunt's upbringing and learning that he had launched a marketing consultancy business and he'd failed with 3 startups and his journey. And I was this started by researching the government funding for pharmacy. I love that we're in an industry where we can follow those ideas, and that often springs inspiration. And what I want to ask you about is your relationship with feeling inspired to write copy versus it just being a process. So when you're writing a promo, say, or you have something, you have a task that's set for you, what do you find the most important? Do you think that you should be following a process? You think you should always wait for inspiration to strike? Is it somewhere in the middle?
That's a good question. That's a good, interesting question. I'm aware that I have a certain privilege these days, that I have more time than other people. And therefore, roughly know that I can muck about a bit. And if I'm not feeling something, I can kind of go to the cinema and watch a film that I really shouldn't be going to see as a 42-year-old man, but can't help it anyway, because it's the only way my brain turns off watching Marvel films, which I did on Monday. But I know that I will, if I'm inspired, I will write my best copy ultimately, because I'll write it naturally. And this sounds like trying to like pass what I'm going to say through my mind immediately before I say it. Is it impossible, but also confusing? But it sounds slightly arrogant, but I'd say one of my strengths as a writer is my ability to write very flowing copy, kind of off the cuff almost. And I only say that because I know other people's strengths and I don't have them. And people often are kind of like, how did you just write that? And it's like, because it just came out, like something that happened there and it went there. And so I know that's when I am at my best. If I'm following processes, I get a bit stuck, because I start going, oh, if it's got to stay like that, it's done this. So I struggle with that a little bit. However, so what realistically though, I'm writing a 10,000 word sales letter at the moment. I know I can't write that whole thing purely on fucking inspiration and like, hey, let's like do a little bit of that today. Don't fancy that? I'll have a glass of wine and just kick back kind of thing. It doesn't work like that. Realistically, I have to go, right, I need to get that bit done by X and that bit done by Y. So I try and do a blend whereby I think I've got it down now that copywriting is broken into 3 sections. It's the research, it's the writing, and it's the editing. And those 3 sections you should try and keep as separate as possible, within reason. Therefore, the research can kind of be put into process time. So, for example, today I was traveling back this morning from Grimsby. So I kind of was halfway through the day. If I wanted to sit down and write, it would be a bit like, oh, I can't, definitely not going to be inspired at that point, kind of thing. So I can go, all right, I'll just do some research. Having the discipline to just go, right, I am just going to do that today as part of that process and get that stuff jotted down, and then leave it and go, I'm satisfied with that. I've got some information. I'll let that percolate in my brain. And then when I feel a bit more in the mood, I'll flow in and I've got all the stuff there. Another time, that's cool. As I say, because I've been doing it a long time, after I'd done a lot of that research, I was like, I reckon I can write that. I've been inspired a little bit by that. I think I've got enough information that I need. And I did. I wrote a little section, and was like, right, that's good. I'm pleased with that. Leave that. Tomorrow I'll go back to the research kind of thing and go through that process. But whilst I'm in that research process, just trying to do that, keeps that. Then if you do that, once you've got all the information, you're much more likely and have the ability to be free and inspired to just write and not worry about kind of what's going on, with finding the detail out, finding like out about Jeremy Hunt and all that. You've got all that. You've imbibed it and you've taken it all on board, and then just write at that point, get that out, and that's where you're looking for inspiration. Then editing is like going through and going, all right, God, I was a bit too inspired then. I just wrote absolute fucking nonsense. I need to like delete that down kind of thing. So I think keeping those bits, that kind of overall process to the approach to creating copy, allows within it moments of inspiration and freedom. As I say, as much as possible, I encourage people to separate So when they are not feeling it, when they aren't feeling inspired to write, to try and get away from writing, it's like, it's really fucking hard, especially if you're like on the on salary or whatever, and you expect to be there 9 to 5 or something like that, or you're literally writing to pay your bills and all that kind of stuff. My advice is not going to be particularly helpful in that situation. But if you at 2 o'clock in the afternoon don't feel like you're getting anywhere, if you spend from 2 till 5 those 3 hours just staring at shit or like writing crap, you've just wasted 3 hours. You may as well go watch the Marvels. Actually, I wouldn't go watch the Marvels because it wasn't very good and it was kind of pointless unless you are addicted to Marvel superhero films. But go and do something else. Get away from it and trust that your brain as a copywriter will be percolating and doing stuff, and it will give you that freshness again the next day. Or if not the next day, when you're in the mood. So again, it's because I'm kind of a bit longer in the tooth now and have kind of understand my life and have a very patient partner and what have you. We know, both of us, and we are both self-employed, so it's helpful, but we know that if I'm not feeling it at 9 o'clock in the morning and I don't want to write today, and I think, right, I'll have the day off, I might work that evening if I feel it then. You've got to, it comes and goes in like both ways. It goes back to the old advice of like, do something you love, and then you're in pretty good kind of situation. But yeah, so I think try and get a bit of process around it, and then create a process whereby you have opportunities to be as free and as inspired as possible. I don't know if that answers your question.
You do not need to suffix every answer with that. It's fantastic.
Words, I've decided in life I want to just give practical advice. That's my big thing. I'm always, and I'm a rambler. I'm a government man. But no, I think there's wiseness in there somewhere. If you can, if someone will, if your man can go and edit that down, and it just go in, and that's it. That's all. Noah,
edit nothing out. I want it to be put up on the stake.
Noah,
I want our audience to see
I'm also into. I'm editing as we go. By the way, for Noah, when you mentioned that Rod does the Nike stuff, I just wanted to undermine Rod, even though I've never met Rod, and say, does he just look at all your direct response and just put, what if I had a tick? What if I had a squeeze here? What if I had a squeeze here?
Oh, no.
Rod. No,
okay.
Rod. Stop it.
Yeah, Glenn. You know what? I do that. I do slap logos onto literally everything we do. And do you know why? Because it works. Okay? Here. You know what? Just watch this real quick. See this page? This page for the Copy That Career Accelerator? You know, a realistic guide to launching your career. It's boring, right? But when we do this, boom, big money page. It's going to sell like hotcakes. And if our audience wants to go see this page that sells like hotcakes, they can go right now into the description of this video and click to see the Copy That Career Accelerator. You're welcome.
We've spoken about inspiration, and we obviously you were primarily referring to promos there in your examples, but to give our audience a clearer idea, we know that every career is different and depends what division you end up in and who, what gurus you're working with, etc. But specifically with your career, and to give people a better idea of what they might be doing if they opt for this world, what does the makeup of your time actually look like over the last X years? Is it primarily being a promo machine? Is it splitting between different areas of copy? Is it something that we've not even considered? How would you try and quantify that?
Yeah. So if you took the last 3 years, I think one of those years I spent mostly trying to write a novel, which I would not recommend it. No, I would recommend it. It's a very interesting passage of self-discovery. No, but so in regards to my work, It's a strange one, I've got to admit, because me and Nick both are a bit of workaholic-y. Me trying to be less so, but Nick pulls me along. How's the best way to describe it? I split it into three ways now. So we have copy. I work for a couple of companies in the non kind of agora sphere, and in the kind of indirect world, where I'll write web copy, tone of voice stuff, like billboard ads and like stuff that you see on the side of buildings and all that kind of stuff. And I do that because I find it interesting, and they're good clients and what have you, and you kind of flex different muscles. So I do a bit on that. We have the fix, which is me and Nick, where we're essentially trying to pay back and teach copywriters and share our experience, and try and recreate what we had with like Bill and Mark and stuff. And in the Agora world, that training we had, that has now very quickly become quite intensive. So we have the accelerated program, which is kind of a larger network, and then we have the academy, which is very intensive, like one-to-one stuff with a group of writers who kind of come in, train with us for a while, and then hopefully go get a job. We've managed to get a few people jobs here and there. So that world is there, and that's like the training bit. And then in the fix kind of thing, you've got organizing stuff like Fix Fest, organizing boot camps that we're doing stuff in America next year and all this kind of stuff. So that's like, there's the running a business bit there. And then me and Nick also have a kind of financial copy business, is the best way to describe it without getting too in the weeds, where we write financial copy for people and businesses, direct businesses, as well as kind of some agora-y kind of stuff. So I'm kind of split between those three things, and then there's like little bits here and there. So that's like what I'd describe as my money. That's the stuff that earns money. And then on top of that, I try and commit at least one day a week, whether it's one day or whether it's aggregated across the week, to working on fiction. And I'm working on a novel that I'm trying to get published. Well, I'm trying to finish it first of all, but I'm in the editing, drafting stage with that at the moment. So I still try and give time to that. And then I spend 5 minutes every week trying to understand how I could become a like print artist, where I just draw things and go to makers markets and sell prints instead, because I can't be arsed with all this copy stuff. It's too hard. But no, that's the makeup of it. So it's kind of agency world a little bit, fix world, and then hardcore financial copy world, still doing that kind of thing, which in a very tenuous way is both sides of that thing, that I'm active in those. So I don't want to be one, like, for as long as possible, I don't want to be like out of it, and that wizened old man just going, well, this is how it is in my day kind of thing. It's like, no, I work in that world. I know what it's like. I have all the same anxieties, and that's worth pointing out. Yes, there's financial benefits to all of these things, but I have all the same anxieties. I worry what people are going to say about that. I worry what people are going to think about that. I have people feeding back on my copy, people changing headlines, people doing all this stuff. I am in the trenches every day kind of thing, trying to do all of that, and therefore can hopefully put myself in a better position to leverage some of my experience for other people, although everybody has to make their own mistakes anyway. But yeah, that's so it's I'd say it's like a I'm trying to get like an even split across all of those things. But yeah, I always say I'd like to just write novels and write silly stuff, but I'm enjoying writing the promo that I'm working on at the moment. It's like, it's a pleasure. You have to, part of getting older and getting happier is understanding yourself and what you like and what makes you tick. And I take enormous pleasure in, like today, I was like, yeah, I have connected that bit to that bit. Those two bits were completely floating around on the internet. No one's put them together. I've put them together in that thing, and that's created a new interesting argument that I think the reader will hopefully go, oh yeah, bloody hell. Unless compliance shut me down, and then it's all for naught. But
almost certain.
It should be good.
That feels good though, right? Like those moments where you're like, I am so glad I found a bridge, like between X and Y.
Yeah, when you write good copy, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be good copy. It might be bad copy. Generally, when you have that feeling, it's usually quite good. You do sometimes have to kill your darlings kind of thing, but generally when you like, oh, that's a good thing, that's interesting. Yeah. It's both a brilliant, like, yeah, I'm good at this. Like, this is good. Like, so you take a little bit of that pleasure and be like, yeah, I'm good at this. This is great. Then you get the pleasure of showing it to other people and going, what do you reckon? I'm like, yeah, I like it. Like, yeah, that's good. And they're like, yeah, good, you check me out. Like, that's cool. And then it goes out and works. So it gets you some money back as well. So it's a beautiful thing. And that I always equate to Ruth. She's a ceramicist. She makes like pots and plates and does art kind of stuff. She's selling stuff now, and it's kind of in Selfridges, it's in Glassette, this online place, nice. And it's doing really well. And she's like, she sat there watching like the Shopify and stuff, and she's like, oh, you won't understand. I'm like, Ruth, like I've grown up staring at like order systems going, what's the percentage conversion on that? Like you get addicted to it. You really do. And to a fault where you can spend too much time looking into that measurable stuff because it's all for naught. Like you're only as good as your next promotion kind of thing. But yeah, it is good. It's a cool. I know saying cool makes it not cool, but like it is a cool thing. I'm very grateful that I've managed to end up in this world where I get to. Even though I write fiction over here, and I'm not making stuff up in copy, but I'm being creative. I'm finding new ways to express stuff, and that's the same as writing a novel. Really, all you're doing is trying to find ways of expressing things that people haven't thought about before. That's you're lucky, man. If you get into that, that's great. So it's all just takes a bit of hard work.
Completely. We it's something we reflect on a lot when we have our kind of clandestine chats on Copy That, which is that we're insanely lucky to be in an industry or to have found or discovered an industry that allows for such variation, I think, in how you can approach it and such kind of self gratification and being able to produce things that not only tick a box and do a job, but feel good to have produced. And I don't know if it's the same for you. Certainly coming from audit, I was doing audit and project management for 2.5 years, 3 years. Going from just having spreadsheets where no one is ever going to look at them and it's just there. So when you're doing your compliance in a year's time and checking like the system before, you can go, yep, that document is there and this spot check was correct. It's actually something that people can get attached to and can kind of revel in, whether that's fiction or whether that is a sales page, which just makes someone feel like, God, I've found the solution to this thing. I didn't, I've been clawing at for so long.
Yeah. I mean, it's without getting too worthy, it's like you are ultimately persuading people to take action to change their lives, however big that might be, whether it's buying an air fryer or investing in gold kind of thing. These are decisions that are going to have a tangible effect on someone's life. You are working in a world of emotions, so you're emotionally moving people in the same way that the holiday might emotionally move people this Christmas when they're rewatching that lovely romantic comedy. People will be emotionally moved by going, oh, bloody hell, I knew that. Like, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's how I felt about that. I've found a fellow believer or someone who's done that. So you are working in very emotive and very influential spaces. That's pretty cool. We tend, another part of that kind of thing where we dismiss copywriting and dismiss ourselves a little bit. We always kind of joke about, oh, yep, the dark arts and the manipulating, and then like, I'm guilty myself. People say, what do you do? I say, I sell people things they don't need. It's me being funny and like doing the Hugh Grant self-depreciation kind of thing. But it's not true. Like, we're changing people's lives. People have been invested and made millions of pounds due to stuff I've written about. I wrote some copy for Hough. People are getting fitter and doing stuff because of stuff I've written about. There's people working in buildings that they've rented those offices because I convinced them to, and now they're stood there having lives in these buildings. It's like all of these elements, there's like a lot of different things, and that's actually a positive thing. We should never get too like, we've changed the world, people. But it is a nice thing to remember that that's the world we live in. And I guess to be tenuous and bring it back to advice for people watching, it's a reason why you should respect what we do. Ultimately, respect the reader, because you have the chance to potentially change their lives. Therefore, what we do is not frivolous. We're not just going, hey, check out this secret code X that's gonna do X, Y, Z, profits and all this kind of stuff. You are actually having an effect on someone. That's pretty big. So you need to respect that process and respect the reader that you're writing to. Preaching over.
No, eloquently put. And I think that it's something we try to establish on this channel is a wave of reality, in that, you know, there's a lot of falsehood about copywriting out there online, and a lot of people who would sway you into the dark side of being arrogant and liking it. We're arrogant, but we do it in a way where we can kind of like act like, we shouldn't be. We're very, as you say, we're very English, I think.
Very English. I'm learning in life to move my arrogance to confidence. That is the transition that we are going to. I'm not sure I'll be able to do it. I'm still a bit of a dickhead, but we're getting there.
We're all dickheads. We're all dickheads. All copywriters are dickheads, but we're impactful dickheads who can change the world for the better. There you go. That can be the next tagline for FixFest.
That sounds like we're getting too close to like Musk and Trump in this with sociopaths. But anyway.
Okay, so I mean, thank you as well for that quite vivid description of what is possible when you break through these kind of ceilings, if you like, as well. You know, you've just mentioned you're in a place where you can have that variety of work and that balance between what you want to do and what you want to work on. I want to take you back to when you were working for Agora specifically, because we do have a lot of people watch the channel who are very, very interested in the financial world and in going that rather traditional route of writing for publications. How did the makeup differ back then when you were actually doing work for Agora? What were you primarily doing? How much did that change over the course of your time at Agora? And just generally, what did you find yourself producing the most?
Right. So to my specific experience at Agora, and I'll share this kind of little story because I think it's got a useful thing. I think you can, if you're watching this and you wanted to get into that world, I think it will be beneficial, especially to where Agora is now and what they need as a company. I mentioned right at the beginning in my origin story where I was employed as a junior writer. I wasn't employed as a junior copywriter. And my first mentor at the time did that because he was a fake person, for one, but also because I think he just was like, oh, just write, like do a bit of editorial, do a bit of copy, do a bit of whatever, kind of just let's see where you go. And I can remember when I did eventually sit down and figure out what the hell was going on and what Agora was, and like holding promos, going, people buy this? Like, how are there's like 60 people in the room going, how are these people getting paid? This is insane. No one pays money for this, let alone a lot of money. What's going on? So once I'd finally got past that, he said, right, well, we've got the sales promos and we've got the editorial that fulfills them. Learn both. So I kind of learned both. Then luckily or unluckily, depending on which way you look at it, I also got in with like the marketing team, and I had very good marketers with me, and I learned a lot of that. So long story short is from when I very first began in Agora, I learned copywriting, I learned editorial, and I learned marketing. From my council days, I also kind of knew customer services and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of got this rounded view of every element that Agora had. And I clocked on very early that to write good copy, you need to understand all of those elements. You don't need to like be expert in them. You don't like, there's better people at marketing than I am. There's better people at customer service than I am, kind of thing. But you do need to understand them. You need to respect them. You need to understand how to improve them and see all that kind of stuff. So I did all of this stuff, and I realized that, yeah, good copy needs to draw on all those things. Even, just to give a small example, at the time, like when you say in a stock newsletter, for instance, oh, just pop online and buy this share. It's like, if you've never actually bought a share or been in CS and customer services and had some ring around, how the fuck do I buy this share? Like, what are you on about? Like, what's a broker? You realize that your copy that just says all this, they're going to refund immediately because it's much harder. So you get to see the whole process. I guess you'd call it like user experience and stuff in a different world. But I learned all of those things. So I started Agora, but I kind of knew I wanted to be a copywriter, and also the copywriters are cool list. Like Bill Bonner was a copywriter, like Mark Ford's a copywriter, John Ford and all these people, Munton and Fedash and all these people that I kind of got taught with. And then you're creative, you're writing and all that kind of stuff. So there's all that kind of thing that goes with it. But I still, to this day, will still like figure out how the design works, figure out how what the latest kind of platform thing is going on, figure out what how Facebook ads work, just so I can see it from the copywriting perspective. I know it's all going to feed back into my copy brain and go, all right, people are operating like this on there, so it's no good me just giving this copy to do that. You need this to do that, and solving the problems that those people are going to face early on. So I started learning that all the way from my beginning time in Agora. When I first started, I wrote promos. Me and Nick slightly differ on this, actually. I think he went the other way around and taught people like lift notes first and everything. But I always thought it was best to learn promos first, because everything else is derivative of a promo. If you need a good lift copy, you can, if you know how to write promo, you can write good lift. So I always kind of learn promos, focus on the long copy bit itself first. I got good at that, and whatever political redundancy wranglings and all this kind of stuff that go on in circles in any company of any size, I ended up being the head of copy at some point, built a little team, was teaching people how to do that. As I did that. I spent less time writing copy, which is always the terrible thing that happens in any situation for a copywriter, because the higher up you get, the less copy you tend to write. But so I did that. So, but then I was training people and doing that, and then I ended up like as the associate publisher in the UK. So then it was like on all of the business angles and what have you, which is like just, it's fun. I like it, but it's a different skill. It's a different skill set. It's a different thing that happens. But that was my route through to the top, if you like. And then went freelance and went back to just writing copy, because that's what I'm best at and that's what I ultimately like. But the route, I mean, it's quite a traditional one, really. But I guess for anybody watching, the takeaway is, working for a company like Agora and any other like it, there's many companies out there, rather than just going freelance, that tutelage and that apprenticeship, if you like, learning with the best every day, focusing on copy, writing copy, just figuring out a better way to express that headline, better way to do the offer, better way to learn a step discount, better way to do a false close and do this stuff, seeing it, testing it, checking the sales, going, oh, that bombed, that didn't bomb, blah, blah. Sat there at night in the cafe, reading it aloud and what have you, sat there writing. I wrote my first £1 million promo on 4 cans of Kronenberg in the flat by myself, kind of thing. So all of that kind of romance stuff, that's, you get in, you just learn as much as you can, and you review copy with people. That's what me and Nick try and do with the fix, is review copy, because the only pissing way you learn how to get better at copy is to review it, have your copy reviewed, and have people say, what if this said this instead? People get so scared by it. I completely understand. It's horrible to have that stuff doing it, but by doing it, you develop that harder skin. And then all of a sudden one day you're just like, oh, hang on a minute. What you're really saying is that you're going to tell me the answer and then let me claim victory. It's like, Ace, yeah, you write my copy for me. Like, yeah, what's this headline? It's just the word duck. Well, maybe replace that with an actual headline and we can do it. It's like, oh, nice one. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'll go and submit that. So there's a very simple way of looking at it, but working and learning and getting in with a company like that is very, very beneficial. But then the side thing for me and for that echoes my particular journey, and I believe has helped me enormously to this day, is learn it all. Like, learn editorial, learn marketing, learn aspects of every bit your copy touches. Wherever your copy is, you need to kind of be understanding that. If it's being designed, what does the designer need? If it's being marketed, what's the marketer need? If it's being complied, I wish I'd done this one earlier. I spent many a years arguing with various lawyers and they hated me for a while. Hopefully I've matured a bit now. But learn, what do they need? How can you make their life easier? Learn all of the bits your copy touches, and become respectful of those, and you will see your progression through Agora, but also any company, accelerated enormously. And that's what Agora are looking for. Like, I know that's the same. We speak to Brian Yorks of this world and what have you. He just wants smart, open people who are like willing to like figure stuff out and be wrong. And like, I still remember this day, Bill Bonner saying to us, like, you just got to fail and you fail fast. I mean, it seems he was quoting and stole his theory off Samuel Beckett, but it's Bill, so you allow him to do whatever you want. But that mindset of Bill and Mark the same, like, just fail, get it wrong, have that kind of, I don't know if this is going to work, we'll try it. Like, that's how they are, and that's what we kind of instilled in ourselves. And I would recommend to people to do the same. But
yeah, that's a view that you and I share, especially around the idea of allowing yourself to be a bit of a generalist. I think there's a lot of pressure to specialize immediately in copywriting.
Yeah. I mean, to qualify, as I say, everything I like to say is practical. If you're going into somewhere, then yeah, I think you're going to be a generalist. If you're freelance and you're like, no, I need to get paid X £100 a day and I need to make ends meet. I don't know if that's the phrase. I sound like an old man now, but you might want to be cleverer and go, okay, this company doesn't want me as a freelancer to be a generalist. They want me to like do special renewals for them and like just load that up and go, here you go, here's a campaign, go and run with it. There's a benefit to doing that. Again, I would go refer to my previous answer to a previous question of, before you do that, figure out where the company's problems are, and then like if they're like, oh, we've got like promos coming out our ass, but what we need is X, you go, well, I can do X for you. Like, and you might be a copywriter who's just really good at that stuff and not great at promos, or not great at lift notes or what have you. You can find a way. So there is arguments to go down the specialist route. But as I say, if you're going in-house, you're trying to get in-house. Yeah, I would argue to be a bit generalist. But yeah,
I think
I don't feel strong.
No, but you've moved on to the point that I want to wheel back around to, which is what I said earlier on in the interview, was that point you mentioned around solving a business's problems. And what I mean when I say generalist, you know, to clarify and to you guys watching, you know, if you watch a lot of Copy That and you've seen a lot of my stuff, you'll know that, you know, I'm quite against niching without good reason early on in your career. And I'm very much of the view that the phrase that I use is you generalize to the point of needing to niche down, and you need to identify when that need is. So exactly what you've just said, Glenn. Like if you're kind of up for anything and you're trying to learn about quite a lot and you're open to any kind of copywriting job, especially if it's, you know, very, very early on in your career, and then you notice this business has an opening, or you've seen, you know, a website and you've been, oh, actually they're quite interesting, or a promo's come through and you said, oh, this guru is someone I'd quite like to explore more. That's when you niche down and you go, okay, let's focus on what this business needs. Let's focus on what they're trying to put out. Now let me try and specialize in that. So yeah, I think we're definitely singing from the same side of the hymn sheet, which also makes me sound like a very old man saying that. But I don't think I've ever used that phrase before. I don't know if the pressure of just having you on and your old man-ness. Yeah,
we are going to our neighbours have invited us around for dinner tomorrow night. In fact, they work with the local church across the road from our house. I don't know if they realise how much of a blasphemous, terrible person I am. But I will need all of the hymn sheet anecdotes I can muster tomorrow. Although I have dug out my copy of Why I'm Not a Christian by Bertrand Russell that I might just like give as a gift.
Oh, that would be good.
Oh boy.
I love the phrase that the neighbors invited you around for dinner and they work at the church. You live in a Christmas rom-com world.
I never imagined it, and I'm still. I mean, me and Ruth both. We don't know what to expect. It'll be fun, but yeah, just very pleasant people. People of Sheffield, I commend them. They are very nice people.
I mean, you've got the Crucible. You know, you've got the Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah, we have Ronnie O'Sullivan around every other night. Can't get.
I would assume so. I would assume so. Yeah, I mean, he's been in the news today as well.
Alex Turner coming around to borrow my salt spray for my hair. He's like, oh, my hair's too big these days. And all this shit. It's very annoying. Jarvis Cocker lives in my bin.
Don't. Let's not belittle the greats. If you know Mark Selby or Ronnie, then do send them around my way. Anyway, for anyone who doesn't like snooker, this is complete drivel. But learn snooker, guys. The back to the useful copywriting knowledge.
Writing copy is a lot like snooker. Yeah.
There are a lot of colours and balls. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not finishing that analogy. But I could.
You're trying to fill pockets.
I could quickly make it up, but yeah.
Yeah,
something. Trying to connect one ball to the next ball, but
trying to find the right angle.
Yeah, anyway.
There's some angles, pockets. There's enough there. Green, anyway. The point I wanted to get to is, you know, we've spoken a lot about the direct response world and Agora, because I know there are definitely people who will watch this who will be really interested in it. But a lot of copy that's audience, and I know it's the same for the fix. I'm in the fix myself, so I'm part of your community. And what both communities I think have in common is we get a lot of people who I think we attract people who want to primarily be freelancers. There are certainly people who want to go in-house, but primarily same for copy that. We get a lot of people who want to be freelancers, who are looking for gigs, and who just want a nice, comfortable job and a career that they can actually enjoy and they can feel proud of. So I want to kind of move over to speaking about your average freelance copywriter, if there is such a thing, and the people who aren't necessarily set on the traditional direct response world, who instead just like, I know I like writing, I know I like this process of idea creation and research. How can I get into this world? And you mentioned earlier about finding a business's needs. Before we explore that more, the question I want to ask you is, before you even find a business's needs, how do you recommend going about finding businesses in the first place who may be open to employing copywriters?
Yeah, so you've got kind of two key avenues, I'd say. Number one is to suss out the businesses that you would like to write copy for, because that's where your strongest stuff's going to be. And by the way, when I say in both of these examples, it's not good enough to just like pick three and then go, oh, I'll email those three. Like, it's just not how it works. We're talking like 30 minimum to like figure it out, and you're going to have to pitch 30 companies cold as a freelancer to try and get one lead. That's the sad, annoying bit, but trust me, you will find it. And connections, by putting yourself out there, you open up potential for other things. So one way, as I say, is to find companies that you like writing copy for, that you like what they're doing. If you've maybe seen a potential hole where it's like, all right, you're on their email list and you notice they're not doing X, you could get in touch and say, hey, I love your stuff. I loved it when you did this and what have you. I thought, hey, actually, you might be able to do this. I might be able to help you with that. If you'd like to do it, let's have a call kind of thing. So you can go down that route, which is companies that you like and respect and want to work for. The other side, I would advise the starting out freelancer is to go to all of the digital agencies. They're all got fucking different names on there, but it's like, let's call them digital agencies, primarily digital and online in this world. You can do this bricks and mortar too. You can go to like most places, and I would start local, by the way. That would be the difference, I'd say. If you live in Leeds, just focus on Leeds to begin with. Don't like try and go to London, try and go to places in America or what have you. Or if you're in America, go to an American, go to that local one. Find all of, you can do bricks and mortar, as I say, you could do that, same principles apply, but find the digital agencies that do need copy, that do need writing, that do need websites filling up and case studies writing and all of that kind of stuff, all that kind of legwork stuff. Again, not just 2, 20, 30, 40. Like, I would hazard a guess that even in a town like Grimsby, which where I'm from, there's like 10 like digital agencies kind of thing, 10 people you could probably go to. Now, of course, in Grimsby particularly, you ain't going to get a lot of money for that kind of stuff that's coming back, and that's a different strategy. But we are talking about getting freelance, and we're talking about getting to the point where you can work freely from home and have the security to have a bath at 10 o'clock if you just want, kind of thing. So you've got to put a bit of time in to get to that freedom. But yeah, start locally, go to businesses that you like, start locally, go to businesses that need copy, and ask them what their problem is. Suggest things if you've seen ways, do a bit of research into those companies on both sides of that. Suggest potential fixes. Try and get a meeting, try and get a call, try and get a meeting in person, take them for a coffee, do what have you. just try and start a conversation. Try not to be sending loads of copy off and CVs and all this kind of stuff. Try and speak on a higher level of like, oh no, I want to have a conversation. I'm a professional person that wants to speak to you about this. Like, think of yourself as a strategist rather than someone like sending stuff out trying to, oh, pay us tenner to write this email kind of thing. It's you're a business and you're trying to solve their problem. So I'd do that. I would start locally, as I say, but then certainly on like companies you like. If you I don't know, I'm looking at my base amp. If I want to write copy for Orange, like, I doubt they're based in Sheffield. I imagine they're an American company. You could go to them and you could do that thing. If you go, oh, I've realized that all of your, like, I reckon I could pretty much guess that Orange amplification have got a pretty shit like email onboarding series. Do you know? I mean, I imagine there's loads of opportunities where I've got the smallest amp. Are they trying to upsell me to the next size? Probably not. Do they have anyone in house who's pushing that? Probably not. If they get someone who writes and says, I don't want to, instead of saying, can I write copy for you? I love your copy and I love your amps because they're all Orange. If you email them and go, hi there, I've been following your company. I'm a big admirer. I've used your stuff. My favorite amp is blah, blah, blah. I noticed when I signed up for this that you don't currently have an onboarding series in place. I've been working in the marketing industry for a while, and I think there's a way I can help do this for you. I'd love to talk more to you about it. Do you have a chance for a call? At this point, I've probably not said anything about copy. I've certainly not said I'm a copywriter. It's like you are a business person trying to solve a business problem for them. I would do that across the board. I'd do the same if I was approaching an Agora company, probably. Try and figure out something there. We interviewed Brian York, lovely man, and he's the chief marketing officer for Agora worldwide. And his answer ultimately for like, how do I get in touch with you? It was not like, send me your best promo. It's get in touch and like, talk to me, like have a business conversation with me, like tell me how you might be able to improve what we're doing. That's what people are interested in hearing across the board. So I would encourage people to do that. Unfortunately, it just takes a bit of hard work. That's the bad news. The good news is most people, including myself generally, are lazy. Like, so most people aren't going to do it. So if you can be asked to like do the research on 20 companies and be clever about your pitch email that you send them to try and get that call, you probably got more chance than most, because most people won't do it. So there is some silver lining, but it does take a bit of work, and it's not easy. But then once you do that, the next stage, I won't go into it, but the next stage is like developing those relationships. Like that's for me, the freelance lifestyle, which is essentially what I have led probably up until last year, I'd say. Now I've kind of moving into kind of business owner lifestyle a little bit. So it's a bit different. Like I have like equity and things and stuff like that. But like when I was hardcore freelancer, where's the next check coming from kind of thing. Most of them, once I'd got those connections, came from getting more money from those people, getting retainer jobs. And the way you did that was to provide good relationships and nurture those relationships. So that's the next bit. But just establishing that relationship in the same way that if you went out on a date, this is proper old man copy advice, but like if you went out on a date, you wouldn't just go, hi there, do you want to go home and sleep with me? Like, it's just not how it works. Like, you would go out, you would talk. What are you interested in? What stuff do you like? What's going on? You'd strike up a conversation. You'd say, hey, do you want to maybe meet again next week? Do you want to do something like that? You develop the relationship. How many copywriters, you might be watching this and thinking, oh, shit, that's me. Email us it and goes, here's my oeuvre of like masterwork that I've done. I did this I once brushed up against Mark Ford and he said he might like the word jam, which I'd actually used in my latest lift note. And it's like, what the fuck is this person emailing me this shit for? Like, start a relationship. M3. Bit controversial, but do stuff for free. Not necessarily loads of work, and don't be doing that, but like, give away your ideas. Like, don't give away your work necessarily, but get in the habit of giving away your ideas, because anybody can nick your ideas and anyone can copy your ideas, but no one can have new ideas. Like, people who do that will not have the ability to copy, to invent new ideas. They will only be able to copy the one you're about to invent. So you want to get into that thing where you are just giving away ideas and you are just an ideas machine. James Altucher, or Nick took the mick out of me the other day because I say Altucher. Is it Altucher? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, he's an entrepreneur kind of guy in America. He's in the Agora family somewhere. But he wrote a book called Choose Yourself, which is very good. But he writes in that, I think it's in that, about like writing 10 ideas a day, and then you'd have 365. Oh no, 3,600. Anyway, you'd have fucking loads of ideas by the end of the year if you did that. And crazy ideas, just like anything. Like, what if I invented a spaceship that was made of glue? And it's like, oh right, that's no good. But you, by getting your idea muscle trained and doing that, that will get you in a good place. And then that gets you that kind of freedom to go, all right, we've pitched that guy, I've given my idea, he maybe even ran with it and like used it. Didn't use me, but fine. When he runs out, he'll know, shit, I got that from that person, I'll come back to that. So get into that habit. But yeah, so reach out to people, but do more people. There we go, just died.
That was a great editing shot. Noah, you can have fun with that. Oh dear Lord!
If I know, like, it would have been like some kind of TikTok star.
That was like the knowledge bombs you were dropping were not enough for your camera to sustain it.
In fact, Glenn Fisher did business and get demonetized.
Get demonetized. Get unmoneyed.
Demonetized Glenn Fisher. Who needs cash?
That's a good. That can be the title of your next book. I like that. Demonetization with Glenn Fisher. The Art of the Click, which I will plug right now.
Demonetization. He's probably written that book already. Yeah,
he's written a lot of books. But yeah, no, I will also plug The Art of the Click right now, which is Glenn's book about copywriting. I had no idea it had been translated to Chinese. That's fantastic. I haven't got the Chinese version. I only have the English version.
Korean. It's Korean. No one knows.
My God, the art. it's a 60s era propaganda poster.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? That's Korea for you.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to see you are now an international published author as well.
Yeah, don't get the Art of the Click. It's a waste of your money. Just
it is.
Buy like I don't know. What could you buy instead? Buy a book that you want to read.
Yeah.
Buy a book that you want to read. That's the
Hitchhiker's Guide or
best way to
something.
learn.
Yeah. Good. But yeah, it's fun. But you touched on a point there, which it's funny. Pretty much everything you said just then is advice that I have mirrored so many times before, because that's exactly how I started was with local businesses, and it's such an underrated or even just underknown way of getting clients. So it's nice to hear you reflect that as well.
Yeah, I just think people make things too hard for themselves, and so you basically want to avoid rejection as much as possible, because it's fucking horrible when you get like rejected for anything.
Yes.
And so if you go out to if you just started writing copy and you have only written 5 lift notes and you don't quite know what like the Fed is, do not email like a publisher at Agora and go, "Hi there, I wondered if I could write copy for you," because they're going to go, "What the hell are you contacting me for? Like, that's insane." Like, do something local first, or take longer to train and learn up, kind of thing. That's not to say spend money on people like me and you or whatever, but like, take longer to learn. But what's probably better is to understand where you are and teach that stuff. Focus on that first rather than and work your way up to the big boys and girls, if that's the way we describe them. But yeah, don't, because you're just going to get rejected and you think, oh shit, it's not right for me. And that's not a thing. You've heard from me today. I didn't know what the hell copywriting was. Like, it was pure chance that I ended up with Agora, and I could have easily been sacked within the first 6 months. I've sacked copywriters within the first 6 months that I've employed because they're not right and they don't get it. But at the same time, I've employed copywriters who had no idea what copy was, who have gone on to be some of the best copywriters I know, and stuck with them, not because they'd were expert copywriters, but because they showed other stuff. But anyway, I'm repeating myself.
No, repetition legitimizes, as we like to say. And something, it's funny because
it didn't kill her.
in a courtroom it may be slightly different, but in the world of computer screens and promos, you might get away with it. But a point you started to develop on, but you specifically said, "Oh, I won't go into that right now." But I would love for you to go into it right now. Is managing freelance relationships, and when you're a freelancer, the value of doing that. How did you upgrade those relationships with freelance clients so they did become more monetarily valuable, and then also kind of in a sense of references, how did it become more valuable, holistically speaking, just for managing relationships?
So the first thing is make everything easy for people. Be the bit that isn't a stress to them. If you're freelance, you're outside the office most of the time. But that person who you're working with, and that specific person who maybe an account manager or a marketer or a head of copy is in the office, and they're stressed out their mind, and they're dealing with like absolute banal shit that we forget working freelance. That is like, what is going on? Why is that? Why is the toilet blocked? Like, why do I have to deal with that kind of stuff? So all of that stuff's going on. They've got like the office party and all that kind of stuff going down, and it's all tearing them away. They've got a boss who's telling them they need X, all that kind of stuff. So when they open their inbox and they're like, all right, Glenn's there, it needs to be a case of, he's just going to give me what I need, and like, it's going to be there. He's going to have anticipated the problems. He's going to be, so you need to think like that and think, right, that person's there. How do I make things easy as possible? Clarity with regards to what you're going to do. Make sure you're clear on the brief. If you're not, nip it in the bud and repeat it back. So you want me to do X. If so, that's cool. If not, let me know and we can do Y, and you can explain. So clarity on that, clarity on payment. This is how much I cost, and this is what you get for that. Clarity on deadlines and stuff like this. I will get this to you by this date, and then do it. The majority of people say, oh yeah, I'll do this, and then don't do it. Try and move with that. Be the calendar for them, in the sense that if something changes beyond both of you, just make sure you just go, hey, that's cool, that has pushed me back, so that original deadline, so we're on this time frame. Clarity in that respect. Clear communication, and communicate frequently and directly, in the sense that give updates on where you are. If you're on a longer project, let someone know where it's going. Let them know, I've been working on it today, I've done this thing, this is where we are, and what have you. So all of these things, just making it easy, making life easy for that person. Then and if you do that and offer alternatives, offer solutions in addition to the thing that you've been commissioned to do. So you go, oh, blah, blah, whilst I was trying this, I had this idea that you might like this, like offer that stuff in addition. And you'll often find they go, all right, I didn't know you did X. Could you do that? And it's like, yeah, cool. Let's complete this job and then we'll speak about that. And then I would also add like it goes into rather cynical, but I would like pep talk clients as well. Like, show that you're excited by what you're doing, what you're working on and stuff, and like get them excited about the job that you're working on for them. Get them to own you in the sense of not just own the project you're working on. So it's their project, so you're kind of working on it with them, but own you. It's like you're their secret weapon. You're their like little hidden, this is particular as a freelancer. They're going into meetings armed with the finest copy the world can produce. If you've hired me, that's a joke. But if they're going into that meeting with your copy, they want to argue for it. They'll be like, oh no, this is the copy. Like, give them the tools they need to do that. If you're going with like some experimental stuff or something interesting, explain to the client, think about who they're trying to sell the copy to. In the world of publishing, as I'm sorely finding out, you write a book, you then have to get an agent, you have to sell the book to the agent, then the agent has to sell it to the publisher, then the publisher has to sell it to the bookseller, then the bookseller has to sell it to Waterstones, and the Waterstones has to sell it to the customer. That's like 5 different like things. You need to be clear at each stage. It's the same with copy. You're writing copy, you're selling it to maybe the account manager, who's then going to go maybe and sell it to a client, and the client's got to then sell it to their boss or that knobhead who actually runs the company and thinks you don't need words and all that kind of stuff. So all these different relationships, be aware of those, and whoever you're immediately working with or for, depending on how subversive you want to be, but whoever you're working with, you've got to think, who are they got to sell this to? Do that for them, help them make that next sale, make them on your side. All of that will help you develop much stronger relationships, and hopefully get you further. Again, this is all just stuff I've done, so I don't know if there's like, I've not got data for it aside from all of the successful copywriters I know do the same. Like you start to get repetition in the industry because everybody goes, oh yeah, well that's how you do it. It's having the discipline and the work ethic to actually do these things that will give you the edge. Like everybody, the edge is available to everyone, but it's only those who are willing to like take it. That's that makes a difference. But yeah, they're all things I would do. Clarity in what you are doing, regular communication, and to be a support and to be aware of not just what you're selling, i.e. to the customer, the copy in the sense that you're persuading a customer to buy something, but who have you got to persuade to use that copy. That's not something we have to think about so much in the Agora world, because everybody's kind of dialed in. Everybody knows you write the promo and it gets sent out kind of thing. You might have to convince compliance maybe, so the skills are certainly transferable, but or you might have to convince an editor to run with your crazy idea, to like have him like stand at the top of the Eiffel Tower kind of thing and say, here's the greatest poll in the world kind of thing. Like, you might have to convince them, but think beyond just selling from the author of the copy to the customer. There are many other selling points in the lifetime of a piece of copy. So be aware of those, because they all link back into that relationship question.
Fantastic. And as you said, as you said there, also looking for those opportunities to upsell yourself as well, and look for those moments where you can position yourself as, oh right, you need this help with copy,
I could do
but
that.
also you
I
have
can do that
emails,
for you. Yeah. it's all kind of, I mean, it depends on your own personality. I'm a funny, kooky guy, but like I would always be soft. I'm like, oh, I could do that. Like it's soft. It's like, oh yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I'd be happy to do that. I can do that for you, kind of thing. Just be dropping that in, never pushy, never like thingy. But then as soon as you get the snap, that's when you shift to that clarity. It's like, cool, right, this is this and this. Take the pressure off the client, the person you're dealing with.
For sure. And I think this is a good time for us to move into the fix itself, because kind of what everything you've just described really is also what I've seen you vocalize in the fix, in your streams and the videos that people get by joining that. So I just kind of want to ask what the inspiration was for you, or what the drive was for starting the fix. Was it completely for the good of humankind, or was it your own malicious deeds that needed completing? What was it that started from Nick and you?
No, it was Nick. Nick came to me and I was almost out. I was almost like, screw this. Like, no, it wasn't screw this. I was doing the All Good Copy podcast, and I put a lot of creative energy into that, and I loved it. And I was speaking to copywriters, and I had plans to go like live and do it all like in person. Like I wanted to really connect with people in a quite a like altruistic way. I don't know if I'm using the word altruistic right there, but yeah, I wanted to do it out of the goodness of my own heart, and also because I just like it. It's good, it's fun, it's a laugh. Like I did like some stand-up comedy stuff with it, and would do music bits and what have you. So I liked all that, but then two things happened. Number one, I started writing a novel, and I realized that took an enormous amount of creative energy, and I couldn't do all the copy at the same quality level and do that. So I had to choose something and still work and like make money and what have you. So I started doing the novel, and then COVID hit. So I just got like locked down. So I just like leaned into like writing a novel, which I wrote an entire novel during that time, and I've abandoned that now. I finished it, and it did me well, but it wasn't the right thing to write. I'm now writing a different thing. But anyway, so I was in that space, still working copy, obviously. And then Nick, we are like old friends. I was his best man at his wedding. And we used to live together, not live together. We used to live together in a bed like bottom. But no, we used to live, both of us lived in Putney in London when we were working at Gora. And we would drink often and regularly and much. And we would talk about copy to the point where his wife and my ex-girlfriend would ban us from even speaking about copy when we were like out, because we were just obsessive about it. But it's what connected us. And we always said, we'll do something one day, like we'll do something around this. I went away and had my career. He went away and had his career, and he came back and he'd gone freelance as well. So we're both in that space, and we said, right, maybe it's time to do this. Like, why don't we do it? Like, let's do something about copy. And all we knew is that we wanted to base it around the idea of reviewing copy, because that for us was the bit that everybody kind of missed. And it's how him and me, me and him,
Grammar
I and him, and I. But it's how we learn. It's what we learned from like sitting around with Bill and Mark and John and all these people. So we started talking again. I also said like I'd like to do like live stuff. I want to do it in person and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to meet more copywriters and what have you. And we just started doing it. We had no idea what we were doing. We went to Paris to see John Ford and had a social drinks in Paris, which we said, come along to this social drinks, thinking like it'd just be me, John, and John Ford, who most people will know. And if not, go and find out. It turned out to be like this incredible night with like, was it 2 or 3 people traveled from England to be there, like on the Eurostar to meet us in Paris. We had Annabelle Ford, who was the head of copy at the Agora's French office at the time, was holding, who's an incredible woman, she was holding like a copy camp at the same time. So there's loads of like young French copywriters. It was brilliant. It was like the brilliant night. My only criticism of the entire night was that the Agora office in France, they drink in an English pub around the corner from the office. So I was like, I'm a pretentious man. I was like, we're off to Paris. Ace, I'll get to like drink in a posh Parisian cafe, get to pretend I'm Hemingway, and there we are drinking pints of what I believe was called Brexit. So that was
right.
a big
was the pub called the Red Lion?
No, it's called what's it called? The Freedom Pub or something like that.
God, that is very English.
Anyway, it was lovely. But that from then we just rolled out and we just kept kind of making mistakes, realizing where the time was best spent, what people were like most responding to. Launched Fix Accelerator, which is, so the Fix is essentially the podcast element of it. We just talk every week. And then we have a like cheap membership thing where we have like a Discord channel. Then we do video masterclasses on various things, and then we interview industry experts from the Agora world, but also the agency side and all that kind of stuff. And then we recently launched the Academy, which is like basically me and Nick are your mentors for as long as you want us to be. And then we did FixFest. We're about to do a financial copywriting bootcamp in March. 19th and 20th of March, I think it is. We're about to sell tickets for that. And we'll do FixFest 2 in October next year. And then we will be doing we'll be doing a FixFest in America at some point. And we just see where it goes. And we do like a lot of social meetings around the country. So we'll do one every month, one usually in the south and then one usually in the north of England. Although we have plans to go to Berlin, Amsterdam, and then eventually we'll do a few in America when we're there. Obviously not as regular, but yeah. So it's just like it basically the way we see it is this is our chance for because we get paid so well in our copywriting jobs. We don't necessarily need money from this kind of venture. So we're able to kind of give time to that rather than do it from that kind of giving back thing. Don't get me wrong, we're charged stuff and we're trying to make it into a self-sufficient business so that we can help more people and get a wider net. And that's like what we're kind of doing at the moment. But yeah, ultimately we think there's a lot of bullshit out there, and I'd love to call it out in a more grotesque way, but we're not that kind of people. But yeah, we think there's a lot of nonsense out there, a lot of like misleading stuff. Don't like the vibe. So we think we are both examples of people who have had very lucky and very privileged careers thanks to this weird thing that we learned that neither of us had any idea existed. So we're quite keen on, for those who are interested in it, like providing the support that is often missing, and kind of cutting through a lot of the noise and getting like straight to it. So like we're about to interview Bill and Mark, and kind of go to the I was going to say, what's the phrase? The horse's mouth. Is that what you say? I was about to describe Bill and Mark as going to the horse's arse, but that's not what they are. But yeah, anyway,
yeah.
from the horse's mouth. That's what I'm wondering for. But yeah, it's just an open community. There's all sorts of stuff out there and loads of ace resources for people. But yeah, we've trained a fair few copywriters in our time, so if we can help do that, and if we can help break down some of the misnomers around copy, and as I say, personally, I've got like a little thing where I'd like to kind of bring the advertising worlds together and spin it so that copy comes out on top. And yeah, me and Nick are working on a book as we speak, actually. Not this book, but I feel like I could write an entire book on like the philosophy of being a copywriter and like how it's changed through the years. But yeah, we just want to help people. Yeah, don't we sound so worthy?
So altruistic.
But yeah, no, it's just, we enjoy it. We have a laugh. We have a basic rule where we say we talk every day on fixed stuff, and we say as soon as it feels like business and like working, we kind of go whoa, like stop. What are we doing wrong? Why? This needs to be fun. This needs to be a laugh. If it's not a laugh, it won't come out as a laugh. And we want it to be pleasurable and an enjoyable experience, which thankfully it seems to be for those like who are following us. And it seems to be going well. We've like got a few people some jobs. People are getting gigs, more freelance gigs from it. We're connecting people. There's like discussions, like the Discord channel is something that I never thought I'd see, but it's like it's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. But it's like copywriters talking to each other, like helping each other, pitching ideas, like people calling out saying, "Oh, I've got a gig, I can't do it. Can you do it?" All that kind of stuff, which is great. So it's nice to facilitate that. And yeah, I've met nice people. I mean, like literally, I did the copywriters meetup in Sheffield last month. Was it this month? No, it's November. No, what's it? I don't fucking know. It was October. It's November now. Isn't it? Was it this month? No, it was this month. Anyway, I did a meetup in Sheffield just because I wanted to meet copywriters in Sheffield. Like it's just, that's a nice thing to do. And I met some lovely copywriters in Sheffield, and I get to drag Nick around the country. So it's all good fun. But yeah, no, it's good. It's a good opportunity. And we just want to big up other copywriters. So for example, like Laura, who's a member of the Accelerated, came to us with an idea recently. Not as recently as it should have been. It was a long time, and then I slowed it down. But she wanted to like set up these little interviews between members of the Fix Accelerator group, and I said, yeah, do it. And she went away, got these ACE interviews, so where it's like copywriters interviewing each other about their careers and everything, and now we're able to like produce all of that for them and publish them to and like become a platform for those copywriters as well. Raise Laura's profile, do all that kind of stuff. The more of that I can do, the better. So yeah, that's the aim of the game. But mainly it's just for me and Nick to be able to ramble about copy without getting told off by our partners.
You can easily point to it and go, it's a business. We're making money. Or we're not making money yet, but there should be money coming. We've been there.
Some money, but not enough money. I mean, Fixed is an example of that. We put every single penny back into that and probably lost money, which, considering how much tickets were, well, they were half the price of the only other copywriting event in the country, but we still had lots of money in, but we spent it all on the festival, including free merch, which my Ruth just was like, why are you giving this away? Like, are you insane? I was like, bring people pleasure is the delight people, as Nick would say.
That it did. I should have worn my shirt for this interview. It's in that cupboard there, and there's a purple blue hat. I'm colorblind, so I don't know which one.
I should have worn my trousers, but I've sat here with my bum cold on the seat all the way through.
Well, you'll have to stand up at the end.
Reveal to find out he's naked below the skin. I'm not.
Oh,
I've got my
well, that's
slippers on as well.
disappointing.
This is how much money we make on the fix. Look, I've got holes
they-
in my slippers.
Oh, right. Okay.
They're Danish slippers. Highly recommended. They're like Danish felt slippers. I think the brand's Elk or something like that. But they revolutionized mine and Lou's slipper wearing. I'm hoping to get a new pair for Christmas. Yeah.
Our foot housery. See, I can't even afford slippers. I've not yet upgraded to slippers in my life. I don't think I've ever owned a pair. Oh no, I have a pair of monster slippers that my nan bought me.
Yeah, I went off slippers for a long time, but these brought me back in. They're very good. They're very good.
I will take the recommendation.
I don't get commission.
Yeah, affiliate link is about to drop, guys.
Yeah, someone should write to them, get their upsell technique. I don't know if they've got any other products.
It's Black Friday as we film this as well in a couple of days. So I'm sorry to say, Glenn, this probably isn't going to go up in time for Black Friday. So you're not going to get as much commission as you would have done.
Don't worry, I don't want to. I'd rather not be associated with Black Friday. I'm not a fan of the madness. Although Ruth seems to think we should buy our new pots and pans on that day, but we'll see.
I mean, I've sold enough products and physical items, especially to know that it really is a big thing. Thank you, human psychology.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, it works. Don't get me wrong. It works.
Yeah,
that's the whatever works.
And the fix, just to attest, to give some third-party testimonials to it. The fix is brilliant. It's full of wonderful resources anyway, but the community itself is genuinely helpful and genuinely lovely. And there, like you mentioned, there really are people, in the Discord server, just referring jobs on and saying, "Hey guys, like I've seen this, might be useful." Really nice conversations. I've only had a couple of conversations in there, but they've always been really nice, and everyone is always trying to help each other. So that in itself is fantastic. And it's also why we're so keen to kind of set some kind of collaboration up, because the fix is one of the very, very few copywriting gurus, I guess, if you want to call it that, but copywriting companies, businesses, YouTube channels, whatever, that it views the industry, I think, in the same way that Copy That does, in that this is not our first, second, or even third stream of income. This started as a hobby. This started because we wanted to get on camera and talk about copywriting because it was fun, which has now turned into a way to sustain itself so we can afford good production and put out quality content, and not hype people up about the get rich quick scheme, which copywriting isn't.
Love me a bit of quality content, sexy content. That's what we all want.
We do have a hot tub stream in the works, but Glenn, how can people find out more about the fix? Because I would highly recommend they join if they have the financial ability to do so.
If they have, yeah. If not, you can probably rinse us for a load of shite. Oh, there you go. Look at that. I apologize for my terrible English language, by the way. Yeah, you can go to thefixcopywriting.com. Is that the website? It is, isn't it? Thefixcopywriting.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. Personally, you'll just see pictures of my dog. We do have an Instagram channel as well. But yeah, you can find us. You will find us. Oh, you will find us. But yeah, no, you can go along to that. If you go on the something cool tab on that website, there's like a promotion for the accelerator. And you can find links through to the Patreon. We run it all through Patreon because we are lazy and don't really understand technical things. And the one person in the Fix team who does also can't be asked to do that. But we will get it all sorted eventually. But yeah, no, it's quite a useful, easy kind of thing to use. So you can go through to that. It's £10 a month, or the equivalent currency wherever you are. But yeah, £10 a month will get you access to all of the kind of Discord channel, the masterclasses, all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, although if you can't afford that, it's probably a problem with your copywriting career and you need to take urgent action. But the urgent action, apart from following people like yourself, Alex, and getting advice, is we do the Fix podcast for free every week, and you can email us copy and we will review your copy, and we will give you feedback on it. We will talk about it and recommend ways of improving it, which is what we try and like base everything around anyway. So you're more than happy to send that in. Again, on the fixcopywriting.com, there is the join tab. There is, I think, somewhere. Click on join, get your name down for an email, old school email marketing, and I will market the shit out of you. But yeah, you can get all that stuff. There's loads of, we've got loads of stuff. Like if you've got a copywriting question, if we've not already covered it in this interview or in like a video for the Fix, me and Nick are more than happy to discuss it, ramble about it. I will ramble about it. Nick will be decisive and incisive and share immediate insight with you. That's the vibe.
I'm not sure. I seem to remember.
Yeah, bad cop, rambling cop. That's how we do. That's me and Nick.
I seem to remember at the Fix event. No, I seem to remember at the Fix Fest. I think Nick began on stage with a very, very, very heartfelt and quite a long spiel about how we're bringing the industry together and so glad we're here and what we're going to talk about and the great speakers we've got, and then introduced the great Glenn Fisher onto stage, who then proceeded to walk on and just kind of went, "Hey, thanks for coming." Yeah, and that was it. It was like that was the
partly nerves, I would think. But yeah, I didn't prepare as much as Nick, because I'm determined to allow myself to flow freely and authentically in life. However, which has a strength. So my parting philosophy, perhaps, I believe like all strengths have the associated weaknesses, and that's a good thing to remember. It crosses in life, but also in your copy. Know what you're good at, and therefore, if you're good at one thing, you're probably bad at another thing that directly links to it. In my case, my authenticity and my ability to flow is a strength. The weakness of that is that I tend to ramble, which is my associate weakness. But I know I can't delete one without deleting the other. But yeah, I think that's the same with copy. Like Nick's, we work on a lot of copy together, and Nick is like one of the greatest researchers and like deep like knowledge copy writers there are in the industry working today. He's like got a huge promo at the moment that's like smashing be copying very soon, but like he's got that, but I can do the like touchy-feely bits in between and link it. So we'll often like fire stuff back between that, and it goes back to what we were talking about in well, it covers it all. But whether you develop a relationship, if you understand your strengths and weaknesses, you can be more honest about it in the relationships that you're building. In whether you niche or whether you generalize, if you understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, you can better kind of navigate that. If you are looking to like pitch stuff to people and ask people for jobs, if you know what you're good at, if you know what you're bad at, you can like lean to that. But be aware that all of your strengths will likely have an associate weakness. So be aware of those. And if you are, doesn't mean you're not going to have those weaknesses, but by being aware of them, you can anticipate them and therefore double down on the strengths. There's some fucking tin pot philosophy there. I don't know. I imagine Nietzsche said something very similar.
So the conclusion of this interview is read Nietzsche.
Read Nietzsche. It's too hard to read Alan de Botton. Read Alan de Botton on Nietzsche. Read the Consolations of Philosophy. That's better than Nietzsche. Nietzsche's very difficult to read. Although Thus Spake Zarathustra is that's probably the most like, that's probably easy. That's got like a bit of a story to it. But the other stuff's hard work, man.
The title of that alone put me off. I was like, I don't know how to pronounce
No,
that.
it's quite good. It like gets you straight in. But yeah, reading philosophy is direct. Don't get me started on philosophy. I will bore you even more than I've already.
Not at all. Sean and I think we wrapped up the last stream that we did, or recording session, whatever it was, with discussing the differences between Epictetus and the kind of Epicurean view at the time, and how they clashed in their notes, which was quite fun. We also, Sean.
Eventually, all copyright podcasts will evolve into In Our Time, and really all it is every copywriter under 50 is just competing to see who will become Melvin Bragg of that world. Really, all that's going on.
Pretension is the corner.
Will it be Alex? We don't know. Will it be Glenn? Who's going to be Melvin Bragg? Just sat there going, I read this advert the other day.
I mean, we need to get together in a room and make at least a debate happen. The fondest memory I have.
Should do. All four of us. We should do a fake In Our Time episode around like the history of the promo or something like that. That would be good.
We should all take a stance.
And one of us can be the Melvin Bragg. Yeah, that could be a good way of doing it.
Increasingly frustrated at the Melvin figure is how I envision that.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's actually that's my parting resource shot to everybody. Stop listening to podcasts that feature me, Alex, or any like us, and just listen to In Our Time by Melvin Bragg. It will give you more copy material than 1,000 scrapings of Drayton Bird.
There you go. You heard it here first. Bin Nietzsche, go for Bragg.
Fact. Go for Bragg. Come on, Bradley.
Go for Bragg? That can be some kind of pun.
Go for Bragg.
Go for Bragg.
Sounds like a game show in the 1980s, but
that too. What a wonderful place to finish. And this is what we like between the copy that and the fix. We don't want the typical round off with testimonials and CTAs. You know, you have to go through the wedge of the interview to find that. No, we're going to talk about like surface level philosophy.
Call to actions are overrated. What is this direct response like?
Well, Glenn, I mean, we'll while the audience is gone, we'll hang on for a moment to sort out some admin stuff and then the next steps of our journey together. But for the audience watching,
I didn't think this interview could get any more sexy, but we're going to hang out for some admin stuff. Yes,
and we're going to take our shirts off, and it's going to be really good.
I wish you. I mean, if you've managed to make it through this, well done on you. But also, I'm so sorry that you won't see the admin.
You won't see the recording upload.
Do something and get a little bit of it there. Just me sat here going like David Cameron.
Noah has to watch all of this. Sorry, Noah. Or Amber, who is Noah's new editor. But anyway, audience watching this, we're putting a lot of money, as you'll know, that
what kind of prices is this?
there's not much money going into our pockets, put it like that, if any.